So keep that in mind if you're planning on coming over here to live. This one I love because it is so much cheaper here in Croatia. It's crazy. Gas in Croatia is about 11 kuna per liter. Much more expensive than in Canada. Hi everybody and welcome back to our channel. I'm Sarah, a Canadian that's been living in Croatia for the past 9 years. Today we're going to talk about cost of living in Croatia, and I'm going to compare that with cost of living in Canada, just to kind of give you an idea of costs here, everyday costs, groceries, transportation, rent, salaries. We're going to hit all the main points and a little bit more. So stay with us to learn all about cost of living here in Croatia versus Canada. And also I'm going to compare more Zagreb versus Toronto because they're the biggest cities in each country and they're the cities that I have the most experience with. So through the video I'm going to say prices both in Canadian dollars and in kuna, but just so you have an idea, it's about 5 to 1. So 5 kunas is 1 Canadian dollar approximately. So it's pretty easy just to do that calculation with most things.
So let's get started with rent.
So an average cost for a 1-bedroom apartment in Zagreb, like about 50 meters squared, in the center of the city is about 4,000 to 5,000 kunas per month, plus utilities and plus all of that. And that equals about $1,000, 800 to 1,000 Canadian dollars. And for that same size apartment in Toronto, it's about 10,500 kunas, which is about $2,100 Canadian dollars. So it's more than double the price in Toronto than it is in Zagreb. Quite a huge difference there. Just to note that in Croatia, they kind of count the rooms differently. So a 1-bedroom in Toronto is really like a 2-bedroom in Zagreb because they count the living room as 1 room and the bedroom as a 2nd room. So a 2-bedroom in Zagreb is the same as like a 1-bedroom in Toronto. Even though rent is much more expensive in Toronto, utilities are actually cheaper on like a same scale. So electricity, heating, water, your basic utilities, they're actually much more expensive in Zagreb than they are in Toronto. I got this from a website called Numbeo and it compares different cities. And so it's saying that for an 85 square meter apartment in Zagreb, it would be about 1,300 kuna, which is about $250 per month for that. And that same size apartment in Toronto, it would be about 800 kuna, which is about $165. So that's quite a big difference when you're talking about utilities. So housing is much more expensive to rent, but utilities are actually less in Toronto when you compare that to Zagreb. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already for more videos all about Croatia. One additional monthly bill that is actually much cheaper in Croatia is internet and TV. So a basic kind of unlimited internet plus a basic TV package in Croatia would be about 270 kunas, which is about 55 Canadian dollars. For the same basic unlimited internet plus TV in Canada, it's about $120, which equals about 600 kuna. So that's a huge difference there. It's much cheaper in Croatia to get some internet and a basic TV package. And internet these days is obviously a must. So that is really goes into, I guess, the utility section. Now phone bills, because that's also become part of our monthly bills. So this one I love because it is so much cheaper here in Croatia. It's crazy. So I'm going to compare like 2 of the bigger kind of companies that offer unlimited packages. So in Croatia, to get unlimited internet, calling, texting, it's about 170 kunas a month, which equals 35 Canadian dollars, which is amazing. In Canada, for the same type of package, it would be $80, so about 400 kuna. So that right there is more than double the price. It's much more expensive to use internet, to talk, to text on your phone. Just phone bills are much more expensive in Canada compared to Croatia. So that's one big plus about living here. Okay, public transportation is our next point. So if you live in the city center in Toronto or in Zagreb and you use the trams or the buses to get around, tickets really are much less expensive in Zagreb. So a one-way ticket in one direction is 4 kuna, which is about 80 cents Canadian. In Toronto, it's I think now over $3. When we were living there, it was $3, which is about 15 kunas. So that's more than 3 times more expensive to go one way across the city in Toronto than in Zagreb. Gas. If you drive, that is something that you would care about. So gas in Croatia is about 11 kuna per liter. Much more expensive than in Canada. 11 kuna is about $2.20 Canadian. And in Canada, it's about $1.30 per liter, which is about 6 kuna and 50 lipa. So much less expensive in Canada. So if you're coming to Croatia, think about that if you're planning on driving. So coming off of gas and driving, if you are looking to buy a new car, it's definitely cheaper to do it in Canada than in Croatia. For the same car, a Golf 8, which is quite a popular car here in Croatia, so we compared that with a new one in Canada. In Croatia, you can get that car for 175,000 kunas new, which is about $35,100. To buy that same car in Canada, it would cost about 138,000 kuna, which is about 27,800 Canadian dollars. So that's a significant amount of money to be paying less if you're trying to buy a new car. But keep in mind, even though the cars are less expensive in Canada, insurance is much more expensive there. So yes, you're going to pay an upfront fee more in Croatia for the same car, but your insurance costs are going to be significantly less. So maybe it'll all balance out in the end. If you're thinking about buying any electronics, do that in Canada, not in Croatia. The prices are just so much less expensive in Canada. If you want to buy a new computer, say a MacBook Air, just so we can get a level product across the board to compare, it would cost you 10,500 kuna in Croatia, which is about 2,100 Canadian dollars. If you were to buy that same computer in Canada, it would cost you about 8,200 kuna, which is about 1,650 Canadian dollars. So that is a significant difference for buying one piece of equipment. So keep that in mind if you're planning on coming over here to live, to stay for some amount of time, buy electronics back home. If you're living in Zagreb or Toronto and you want to work out, you want to join a gym, the costs are not too drastically different. In Toronto, it will cost you about $60 a month, which is about 300 kuna, and in Zagreb, it'll cost you about 200 kuna, which is about $40 Canadian. So about a $20 or 100 kuna difference between for 1 month membership, and that's like when you sign a contract for a year, and then the months become a bit cheaper. So those are the cost of gyms if you're looking to join a gym in either city. If you have kids, maybe you'd be interested in hearing about daycare costs. Here in Croatia, it is so much cheaper than in Canada. For example, for one child, full-time care per month, it's about 1,000 kunas, which is about 200 Canadian dollars. That's full care. You get breakfast, lunch, a snack, a morning snack, and an afternoon snack. And the child can go every day, Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, or whatever time suits you, but you pay one monthly fee, full-time care the whole week with those meals included. It is just amazing. There's also public daycare options that are subsidized by the city, and they're even cheaper than that. So daycare here is very affordable. In Canada, it's much more expensive. I pulled this number from Numbeo, but it's about 8,000 kuna per child per month, which is about 1,600 Canadian dollars. Comparing that with $200 in Croatia is just an incredible difference there. So daycare here is very affordable and very accessible, and I know that's just a different story in Canada. Salaries. So here they talk about salaries on a monthly basis instead of on a yearly basis. So that's how I'm going to refer to it now. The average net salary in Zagreb would be about 8,250 kunas, and that would equal about 1,650 Canadian dollars. So here I'm just talking about Zagreb salaries. The national average is lower than that, but here I'm specifically referring to average monthly salary in Zagreb. The average monthly salary in Toronto net, so what you would bring home, is 22,900 kuna, which is $4,600 approximately. Now I'm gonna put up just a few price comparisons through the grocery store. I got my family to snap some pics back home of different products, and I've snapped some pics here. So we're just gonna put them up to compare side by side, milk, bread, eggs, that kind of thing.
Here we have a bag of just plain sliced bread. It's about 7 kunas here in Zagreb, which is less than half the price of the same type of bread in Toronto, which is about 17.5 kuna or $3.50. So bread is more expensive in Toronto. For milk, it's also more expensive, almost double the price in Toronto for 1 liter of milk. It's about 6.5 kuna in Zagreb compared to 12 kunas per liter in Toronto. For eggs, it works out to pretty much the same price, 16.5 kuna for a pack in Croatia and 17.5 kuna for a pack in Toronto. The only difference is that you only get 10 eggs for that price in Croatia, and in Canada you get 12. For apples, I don't know whether it's just this particular store in Toronto, but I didn't expect apples to be double the price in Canada. They're about 9 kuna per kilo here in Zagreb, and in Toronto at this store, they're about 18.5 per kilo. For chicken, this worked out to be pretty much the same actually in both places at the regular prices, not the sale price that's shown in the Croatian picture here. Chicken is about 50 kuna per kilo for boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which works out to about $10. For beer, it's almost half the price in Croatia for a 6-pack of tall cans of domestic beer, and in Canada, the same type of a 6-pack is about 80 kuna, so that's almost double the price. For just a regular pack of plain oats, it's also about half the price in Croatia at 5 kuna for 500 grams versus in Toronto, which is about 10 kuna for 500 grams. So double the price there. These are just a few examples, and of course they're going to vary by store and by city, but generally food is a little more expensive in Toronto than it is in Zagreb.
That's the cost of living, just comparing side by side different products. I hope you found this video informative. If you could keep your Canadian salary and work remotely and live in Croatia, I think that would probably be the perfect combo, because you'd have a bigger salary, lower cost of living, and you'd be A-okay.